Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, a landslide election makes Miami the second largest Florida city to be led by a female Democrat. We talked to the mayor of Florida's largest city about what it means, along with other state and local headlines. Later in the program, a regional conservation group celebrates 25 years of saving land and redefining strategies for environmental protection. But first, I'm joined as I am each month by our mayor, Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan, here to talk about recent city headlines and to take your calls and questions. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning, Ann. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and I'm glad to see you back in the chair here.
Yeah, good to be here.
If you're listening, if you have a question or comment for our mayor, you can reach us on air at 904-549-2937, or you can go to firstcoastconnect.org to find all of our quick links. So, Mayor, the big morning in Miami, I want to ask you about.
I was just reading about that. Seems like it was quite the race down there.
Quite an overwhelming victory for a female Democrat in a city that hasn't had a Democratic mayor in almost 3 decades.
Yeah, that was the most surprising thing to me, to see that it has been 30 years since they've had a Democratic mayor. Because, Miami used to be pretty reliably Democratic. Mm-hmm. But I didn't realize that it had been 30 years since they had a Democratic mayor. So congratulations to her, and another female mayor, first female mayor in Miami's history as well. So
yeah.
I mean, for the city of Miami. So I'm going to give her a call later this morning just to congratulate her and welcome her to the family. But I believe that I read that 16 of Florida's 20 largest cities are now Democratic mayors.
Do you see any larger significance? I mean, a lot of people are trying to read the tea leaves about, elections, mid-cycle elections, and Miami certainly has been one, sort of like New York and the governorships of a couple of states.
Well, look, I've said this before, and I think that the folks who are laser focused on things like affordability, on housing prices, on the things that create quality of life for people are the ones who are going to resonate with voters. And it's my understanding that she did a lot of that. I think that regardless of what party happens to be in power, we saw this in the last election. We saw it in the presidential election. We're now seeing it coming up on the midterms, that if people aren't feeling like their needs are being met, they're going to make a change, and I think that's what you've sort of seen in the elections so far, that we've seen, just in the last couple of months. I think people are feeling the squeeze of the economy, and I think they want to be heard.
Yeah. Do you have any words of caution for a big city mayor, a Democratic mayor who might prove, a target for an administration that hasn't always been super kind about how it talks about women in some ways, but also, has also, got its sights on powerful Democrats, and certainly a Miami mayor is somebody that could be an attractive target.
Well, I'm sure she doesn't need any advice from me, but what I would always say, or just the way that I have, I think, conducted myself while in this office, is just do your job. That's it. Focus on your job. Get things done. I as you know, try desperately not to wade into national politics if I don't have to, because I don't have any say over any of that. I try to keep the main thing, and that's what I would say to any mayor. Really, which you don't have to say to most mayors, because we know it. Mayors are the ones around the country that get things done, and I would say that especially in this political climate where things and the civil discourse has gotten so far out of line, that the more you can hew exactly to your calling, what you were elected to do, and that is take care of the issues of your constituents in your city, I think the better you're going to be.
We're talking to Jacksonville's Mayor Donna Deegan, and you're welcome to join our conversation on air at 904-549-2937. We have a call from Sonia on the South Side. Good morning, Sonia. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. And thanks, Mayor, for taking calls and helping our community be a strong, wonderful place for locals and visitors. My call this morning is specific to the town center area. And I understand that there's a lot of city ownership as well as private ownership and maintenance of certain roadways by the state. So I understand the complications of that. But I have found that area, including parts of JTB that have deep potholes and kind of roadway hazards that are developing over time, not being maintained, specifically directly in the core of the town center, which is a high tax revenue generator, I would presume. The corners have weeds growing out of them. There isn't maintenance. It looks visually dilapidated. And this is supposed to be one of our highest, most attractive locations for visitors and locals. If you go to other communities, like I'll just take Orlando, if you go to their quote-unquote town center areas, they are visually very, very pretty. You know, they make an impression and a positive impression. I feel like our town center area has deteriorated, and it's not a reflection of, if you're a business owner there or a shopper there, it's not what Jacksonville wants to portray.
Sonia, thanks for the question.
Yeah, I appreciate that call. We certainly have a lot of roads that need help, but she makes a really good point. We do have a partner in DOT because our state roads and our local roads are very much intersected, and a lot of those areas where there are overpasses or off ramps that can tend to be state roads. But I know that in Public Works, I know that Nina Sickler works very closely with DOT. I know there's a scoring system for how they get to roads to create fixes and fix potholes and beautify. And one of the things that we have really tried to pay attention to with our new blight initiative is how do we make sure that we obviously increased the mowing budget quite a bit when I came in, which has helped some, but we can't overstep onto those lines that are state controlled, but we do communicate with them quite a bit. So I'll look into that and find out where all of that is on the list and who is responsible. But I appreciate the call, and I agree with you 100% that we need to make sure that our public areas look inviting, and certainly need to make sure that we continue to fill those potholes and create roads that are drivable.
Given the tension between the state and various state agencies, sometimes antagonistic relationship with even your administration, I'm thinking sort of the CFO, audits and such. Is there any downside to dealing with DOT now or other agencies? Is there any short shrift that the city gets?
No, I don't think so, Ann, at all. I mean, obviously JTA also works very closely with DOT. Nina Sickler in our Public Works office has had a really great relationship with DOT. We've had to work very closely with them on a lot of the things that we're doing in the downtown because some of that is overlap. We've and what we're doing with the bridges and the parks and all those things. So they've been really great to work with. It hasn't been a contentious relationship. It's simply a matter of we all have our own ways to score and all have our own ways to do repairs, and sometimes those schedules or those priorities don't match up, and then we have to figure out how do we navigate that. So I know that's frustrating for people, but I certainly don't see any tension there with DOT.
I want to take another call, this one from Tom in Ponte Vedra Beach. Tom, go ahead.
Good morning. I just want to know what kind of plans we have in place. I'm in the Duval area of Ponte Vedra, and what are contingency plans do we have in place for if the legislator gets rid of the property tax? How will they finance our goods, our services?
Well, gosh, that's a fantastic question. I'm not sure how that would happen, to be honest with you. I don't think it is realistic to believe that we could pay for. In fact, as I've said many times, our police and fire alone, our property taxes barely cover that in the city of Jacksonville. Our taxes are the lowest by far of any major city in the state of Florida, and the fact that we're talking about getting rid of property taxes, I think that's why you've seen law enforcement come out so forcefully against lowering or getting rid of property taxes, because it is the main source of funding for their services and for many things that we provide. So there has not been, as far as I've been able to tell, any sort of a strong explanation of how we would compensate for that. Now, having said that, I know that the legislature is looking at a number of things, not just elimination of property taxes, which I think most people that I've spoken to have said they don't think a complete elimination of property taxes is probably very likely, but that there may be more adjustments to who pays property taxes, who if there may be an adjustment to the homestead exemption. There may be more things like that, but if there were going to be a discussion of a complete elimination of property taxes, that would have to go before the voters in a referendum. And I think there would be a lot of very strong voices from law enforcement and others saying, we don't see a way forward here. If you're talking just about increasing the sales tax, then that becomes, which I've heard some talk of, that becomes very dependent on the economy. And if you have a downturn in the economy and you're taking in less sales tax, you really can't depend on that to pay for your services. So what we heard very, very strongly during our public town hall meetings before the budget was we want our services. We don't want to save that $1 a month that we might save by cutting property taxes. We want our services. And I think that if we eliminated property taxes, that would be a much bigger problem. So that is a very long answer to your question, but the answer is simply we have not seen any particular plan that would show us how that would be collected.
How that could work.
Could work, yeah.
We've got a call now from Eugene on the north side. Good morning, Eugene. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning to the host and the mayor. I want to just say, first of all, I voted for you last time, and I'll vote for you again. Hopefully, what happened on last night in Miami, I'm a native of the area. I'm proud of that, as well as proud to be a citizen of Duval County. Hopefully, this is a vote of confidence for you and the whole gamut of things, because I think it's just going to get better. So if you run again, you got my vote.
Well,
Have a great day.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I obviously appreciate that support. I think that I have tried very hard to be someone who listens more than I talk in terms of what my interactions with our community. And we've done a lot of town halls. We'll be starting a whole new segment of town hall meetings as soon as we get through into the new year, just to start talking budget again. It seems like it never ends, Ann, the whole budget discussion.
Yeah, it does seem a perpetual conversation. I want to ask you about, elections, the idea of a challenger, because we're already starting to see people dip their toe into the water. Florida Politics was reporting about this internal poll showing Jerry Holland leading you. I talked to some people about the reliability of an internal poll like that. And
well, let me tell you that I saw those exact numbers in a couple of months earlier from a poll that was done, which did not have a head-to-head with Jerry Holland in it. So I thought that was sort of interesting. But either way,
I'm sorry. What were the numbers that you saw?
I saw the numbers. I mean, you're not going to get the exact same numbers in a poll twice, not exactly. And all I saw was a comparison to a number of different people. And then what we saw in that internal poll was then the further step of comparing us head to head. But I think the total number of people in that portion of the poll, they said, was like 160 or something like that, with a margin of error of, what was it?
Over 5, I think.
Yeah, it was closer to 10. Because of the numbers. So these are the types of things you're going to see more and more as we get closer to election season. Everybody's doing internals just to see where things are. And that's what.
And to be clear, that's like when somebody does some polling on behalf of themselves. Right?
Yeah.
What does the community think about this candidate?
Or on behalf of a group, sure. And so you're going to see more and more of those things. But what you're going to see a lot of, especially as we get closer, are a lot of things thrown up against the wall, just for reasons of trying to make a point, and that's part of politics. That's part of election season. But I don't place any particular significance on any of them, to be honest with you. Polls are a snapshot in time, but they're also very often, taken from an angle.
I mean, regardless of what the polls say, how does moving in closer to a reelection impact you? What does that change for you?
It doesn't change anything for me beyond the fact that obviously, we have to start raising money, and that's being done in a pack right now. But I want to just continue to do my job, and that's really what I've always said is that regardless of whatever else is spinning in the universe out there, if I continue to focus on customer service for the people who elected me, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and that's what I'll continue to do.
We're talking to Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan. We're also taking your calls and questions, and we have a call now from Les on the west side.
A lot of calls today.
Yeah, good morning, Les. Go ahead.
Good morning, ladies. I just wanted to ask you, with all the buzz about AI and everything, are there any plans to put AI in charge of the traffic lights in Jacksonville? Thank you.
I mean, I suppose there'd be some efficiencies with that. That strikes me as maybe something that might be more of a possibly. I guess that wouldn't be a DOT thing. That would be a JTA decision.
It could be a public works decision.
Mhm.
I mean, but those are, look, we are looking at all sorts of possibilities with AI right now. We have a group that is studying a lot of different applications of what we could do with AI. Obviously, security becomes the number one issue that you discuss to make sure that you have what you need in that regard. So we're going to proceed cautiously, but I do think it's important to take advantage of anything that will help us to improve the quality of life for our citizens. And one of the places where I think it's going to be exceptionally helpful is in terms of permitting. We announced yesterday, I think we permitted a restaurant with the fast lane permitting, and I want to say the entire thing got done in 19 days, which is just fabulous. But part of that is because you're able to use AI to search through certain documents and make sure that anything that's not completed correctly gets corrected, quickly. That also takes another human to go back and take a look at it. But at the end of the day, it does speed the process up. So there are some things that seem relatively benign that can help move us forward pretty quickly. There's other things that perhaps might be a little more complicated. But as far as the traffic lights go, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm certainly happy to ask.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the last year. I mean, last night was the last city council meeting of the year. It has been, I think, safe to say, a fairly contentious year with the city council. What is your feeling about how this year went? What, if any, strategies do you have going forward to, try to improve that relationship, or at least kind of push down some of the roadblocks that have emerged out of that contentious relationship?
Well, I'm going to say again, Ann, we got almost 99% of what we wanted out of that last budget, and we've done that since we've been here. And I think what that speaks to is when it comes to our shared priorities, which should be all of our priorities, and making sure that people are safe, making sure that we have, our roads paved and our parks funded, and all those things that are important to quality of life for people, we're moving those things forward. And I think, as I've said repeatedly, people should not get caught up on a lot of the political jargon that comes out. Now, having said that, it's always a roller coaster, right? This is obviously a period of relative calm because we're coming up on the holidays and we're finished with the budget. And when we come up to the next year's budget again, especially approaching an election year, it's going to be contentious again, because it always is. But I will say this, I have always tried to build relationships with the folks on the city council. I think we have, a handful of folks who just sort of stay tuned into the political noise. And I think everybody else is very much focused on moving the city forward. And so it makes me optimistic for what we can accomplish in the next year. Sometimes when you're going to be looking at a very tight budget, it helps you to zero in on priorities and what's really most important. And I think that we all are very, very cognizant of the fact that downtown has reached a momentum point that we want to make sure that we push over the top and keep going, because it will create so much more revenue, in addition to the fact that we want a vibrant, thriving downtown to attract young people and business and all those things that help our economy. But I feel very optimistic about that relationship. And I guess I say all that to say that some of what you see is just, political theater, right? That's part of politics. But I think that at our core, we have worked very well together to continue to move the priorities of the city. And so I meet every other week with Council President Carrico, and we go over mutual priorities and things that are coming up in council and how we're going to deal with those. I have already met with the Council Vice President, Nick Howland, who is going to be incoming president. And I think we both share a desire to have a good working relationship that'll help us get to a good budget next year. So it's okay to have different voices that bring different things into the conversation. The important thing is, you can put politics aside for the betterment of the city. And I think we'll do that.
How closely have you been following the concerns circulating around the former finance chair Raul Arias, who stepped down recently from that role? Do you think that's significant that he stepped down? What do you think that portends about his political future?
I don't know. I feel like while Raul was in that role, I think we worked well with him. I really haven't followed very closely in terms of what's happened in regards to all these stories that are out. But I suspect if there's something there, it will come to fruition. But obviously, my job is to work with the council. So I've immediately contacted Joe Carlucci and said, hey, let's start having regular meetings like I was having with Raul, and let's make sure that we're staying on the same page with things. What I want to do is try to make sure that we are we are in the best position we can be to be aligned when we go into the budget, so that we don't end up with a lot of contention there. And there will always be some, like I said, but I beyond that, I try not to involve myself in leadership issues with council. I've learned it's not helpful.
Not fun.
So no, it's just better to leave that to them.
Yeah. We've got an email from Bill. He says, this is a river city whose fate is tied to that of the magnificent St. John's.
Yeah.
The State of the River report has shown that the quality of the river continues to decline. Given that reality, why do we continue to permit new septic tanks when we know that septic is a primary cause of the river's problems?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, and that's always been a puzzle to me for years. We are working as diligently as we can to remove those septic systems and tanks that are closest to the water, that are creating the greatest problems, the ones that have been there, that are currently contributing to problems we have with the river,
and paying hundreds of millions of dollars to do so.
Absolutely, and so it, to me, it isn't really helpful to continue to put in new septic tanks, but that is, that is one of the issues with a fast growing city where people do want to live, in sort of far flung areas that don't have the infrastructure yet. And so there are some places where that has been the path. And I would love to see us get to a point where we are no longer using those at all.
What can the mayor do?
Well, I can certainly, say that that's the policy I would prefer, but to turn the wheel on something like that is it's not simple and it's not fast. What we have determined is the best use of our time at the moment is just trying to get those septic tanks that are failing out of the ground as quickly as possible. I don't think by any means that is the preponderance of what's out there. I don't think that's the main thing to go to in terms of new construction. But we do have some areas where it's still happening.
Unfair where the developer is putting in a system that's probably a lot cheaper, and a homeowner is buying that system, and then the city is paying to take them offline. At an enormous cost. Is it $1 billion to remove and
it's at least that, I think, if you were looking at it in total.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't know the technology of today, if it's different or if it's better. But at the end of the day, it's not a system we want to have long term. And so the ultimate answer, and as I've said many times for right now to me, and it's another reason why I love to see us focus our incentives for building on areas that already have existing infrastructure where we don't have to put in things like septic tanks. But I would like to see in the long term them phased out for sure.
We've got a call from AJ on the west side. Good morning, AJ. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Good morning, and good morning, Mayor Deegan.
Morning.
Happy Merry Christmas to both of y'all. My question is, I'm AJ with Mad Dads. My question is there any updates on the Jacksonville journey? I know we're doing very well with our crime stats this year, and I know that program will help a lot of nonprofits in our city. So I'm just trying to get an update on it. Thank you, Mary. I have a great day over there. God bless y'all.
Thank you. God bless you. I appreciate the call. Yeah, we're continuing to move forward with Jacksonville Journey. It's obviously been in fits and starts for a variety of reasons, but there is a board. And there is some funding for it this year. We couldn't really get a lot of funding for it last year, but there is some funding for those programs. So we are moving forward with Journey. I think our work on that is we got to make sure that all the organizations that are so critical to making sure that Journey is successful are on the same page and moving together. And so I think the reason Journey was so successful when it first began was because you did have everybody rowing very hard in that direction. And I think at this point, we're still trying to get to where where is there a comfort level where you're marrying all the different organizations that are moving on journey. But there is money and there are programs that are going to be coming online. So thanks for your patience on it, and we're continuing to try to move it forward.
When it comes to crime, I want to ask because a proposal came out of council regarding a new jail that's coming from Councilmember Jimmy Peluso. He's specifically proposing, he wants a guarantee that a new jail is not going to be built in traditionally redlined communities. And he, introduced an old redlining map that shows where those communities were, and in many ways still are. And he wants to make sure that the people that have been in, communities that have been disenfranchised or have been stuck with a lot of unpleasant previous developments won't be subject to that. One of the comparisons that he brought up was something that predates you, but has also been an issue you've had to wrestle, which is the mortuary.
The medical examiner's office.
Medical examiner's office, also sometimes called the morgue, but it is a medical examiner's office. It's where autopsies are done, and it is in Brentwood.
Yes.
Is that something that you'd be willing to commit to?
Well, I think it's the perfect time to discuss it. That is one thing that I have tried to talk with the group that has been so opposed to it. It's very, very hard to reverse these things once they've already, come to fruition, right? And so I think it's a great time to discuss where it should go. But look, what we're doing right now, Ann, is we haven't even gotten to the point where we have gotten through the RFP process to get the groups that are going to be looking at sites that are going to be, making that sort of determination of what would be options. So I'm not going to tell you that those groups, I don't know where they're going to come up with. I have no idea what they're going to suggest, but I would strongly suggest that if there are areas where people are saying we don't want this, that we should hear those people, and that should bear great weight in the decision of where the jail goes.
Do you think there's been enough transparency in the potential sites? I mean, of course, we don't know exactly where, right? There is
We're
a
not
process.
there yet, Ann.
Well, but the sheriff and I'm sure you to some extent have, heard conversations about plausible places that the sheriff would say, well, that might be too far, or we would need an adjacent facility if we're going to do that. Other components, but there's only so many tracts of land.
Well, you obviously need a big piece of land.
Sure.
And I think that's going to be the other question for these groups that are coming together to say we don't want this. I think the question is going to be what's available, how far away is too close, or do we need to avoid an area or a side of town altogether? And if we do, what does that look like? But I can tell you honestly, from my perspective, I have been trying to take this, in the steps in which they are, provided. And right now we want to be very intentional about making sure we got the right groups that are involved in all this. And that's really where we are right now. And I'm really telling you the truth. I don't know of targeted areas beyond. We've all heard talk about the P Farm,
which is Northwest Jacksonville.
Which is Northwest Jacksonville, and the sheriff has said he is not enamored with that site. I don't know what will be proposed beyond that. I know there have to be a number that are going to be on the list for us to look at, but we're not there yet. And so that's what I would say. I think it's a great time to have the conversation. I absolutely think if there are groups that want to and need to weigh in on this, that this is the time to do it. So I have no problem with what Councilman Peluso is suggesting, but we need to wait to find out what these groups are even going to come back with. And obviously there'll be all this information will be available to them as well.
I want to take a call from Richard on the west side. Good morning, Richard. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you for taking the call. I'm calling about mass transit, and I'm not talking about NAVI or whatever that thing is called now, which is a failure. But 5 years ago,
it just started. How can it be a failure?
Okay.
Okay. I'm not going to accept that as a premise. Let's put it that way. This just started. So I am not of the belief that it is a failure, but please go ahead. I shouldn't have interrupted you.
Well, let's get on to the issue. The issue is not about NAVI, but it's about something which evidently JK is not paying attention to, and that is buses. 5 years ago, I used to be able to walk around the corner, and every 15 minutes there would be a bus that would take me downtown in about 20 minutes. Now, the other day with this lovely new park opening, I wanted to go downtown. And to go downtown would have entailed a trip of 45 minutes and 2 transfers. And the bus that used to come every 15 minutes now comes every hour. If we're going to have all this wonderful activity downtown, we need to be able to get down there without having to drive and hunt for a parking space. The solution, an easy solution, is JTA has routed its buses coming from the west side, so they all terminate at this bus depot on the western edge of La Villa, right next in the armpit of I-95. A simple solution would be to make all these buses circulate through downtown before ending up at this La Villa place. I mean, there's not much at the La Villa place now except for, well, there is a bus terminal for Greyhound, which occasionally you have a bus, and there will be the UF campus there, but at the moment, it's not a destination. Whereas downtown is a destination. If we want it to be a more active destination, we need to make it easier for everybody to get down there on mass transit.
Thanks, Richard.
I appreciate that, Richard. And I agree with you. We need to make sure that people can get downtown. I mean, that's been an issue we've been discussing for a long time in terms of the routes. I know that from my discussions with JTA that this has been a longstanding issue they've been working on. I think that obviously I believe that La Villa is going to be a very thriving area very soon. But we do want people to be able to both get into and out of downtown in a way that doesn't take, I mean, ideally you would like that all over the city where you don't have to take 3 or 4 transfers to get someplace.
Do you think that the focus on the NAVI has detracted from spending, prioritizing other routes that are perhaps used by more people?
I don't think so. I think that's a completely separate issue, but it needs to be dealt with, and I don't disagree with him. I mean, I've had those conversations with the JTA leadership.
They're aware of that criticism.
They obviously are very aware of that criticism, and I think that the NAVI is obviously a first step in terms of getting around some of the areas around downtown. But this whole idea of can you get in and can you get out of downtown, especially after certain hours, is an issue and one that I know they are addressing.
Well, Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan, we have a ton more calls that we're not going to get to, but thanks to everybody for calling today. Thank you for being here and answering the questions.
Thank you.
Always appreciate it.
Have a great day.
All right, you do the same. Up next, we sit down with the city's new fire chief to talk about the risks of lithium-ion batteries and the challenges that they pose during the holidays, both for you and first responders. Welcome back. Whether it's a new phone, laptops, e-bikes, or a hoverboard, chances are this holiday season is going to bring at least some new lithium-ion batteries into your house. And that can mean additional risks, both for your family and for first responders. Here to talk about it and how to manage both lithium-ion and rechargeable batteries, we are joined by the city's new fire chief, Percy Golden. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, to kind of push some information out to the citizens. So glad to be here. Want to talk about lithium-ion batteries. As we know, it's not a new product, but it's been around for some years now. But it's some things that we've been dealing with here recently with ion batteries as far as disposal of them.
I want to ask you about the disposal and also the handling. But first, I've just got to ask you, how's the new gig? How's the job going? You've been on now since the summer. Obviously, you come from a long line of firefighters in your own family, but how does it feel to be chief?
It is great. I didn't come on the job to be the fire chief. It happened that way, but I have a love and passion for the citizens of Jacksonville. Been born and raised here my whole entire life. As you mentioned, kind of followed my father's footsteps. So he was a firefighter for over 20-something years, and kind of followed that line and just the line of firefighters and wanting to help people and help the citizens.
Your brother as well?
Yeah, I have a brother as well on the job. So we kind of took that route. So,
yeah.
Yep.
So when it comes to lithium-ion batteries in particular, explain to us, first of all, like, why are they different from just an alkaline battery? What are the challenges that they pose when it comes to fire risk?
Yeah, so with the lithium-ion batteries compared to just your regular household batteries, these batteries are kind of made a lot differently. They have what they call lithium salts in them, and they're created. Those batteries have different cells within them. So at any point in time, any one of those cells can fail. And what happens is if one of those cells fail, it causes a lot of heat within that one cell, which causes heat in the other cell. So a lot of times we use this term called thermal runaway, and that's the term that we use to describe when those lithium-ion batteries catch on fire. So that's a tremendous issue that could happen.
So because of that thermal runaway, I mean, part of what you deal with are fires that are spreading fast, but also have really intense heat.
Yes.
And can produce really toxic emissions.
Yes,
So
definitely. Yes.
how has that changed your training protocol?
With the lithium-ion fires, of course, most of the time we're learning as growing up as kids. A fire, you put the water on the fire. Once it goes out, you're good to go. With these fires, yes, you do that same concept. Put the water on it, get the fire out. But what happens is these lithium-ion batteries contain a lot of heat. So it may be a couple hours later, those fires can actually reignite. So we're having a little bit more on-scene time dealing with these type of fires, making sure they don't reignite. So that's a different tactic that we're using within the fire service.
Is that necessarily then a hazmat team response once you realize that is what's on fire?
It could be. There's, of course, the regular lithium-ion batteries that you see in your kind of like your golf carts, cell phones, e-bikes, things like that. Those are fine. But when we talk about the hazmat team, it's a difference between the lithium-ion batteries and lithium metals. With those lithium metals, those is when we kind of dispatch our hazmat team. It's a special type of foam that we have to use to put those fires out. But your typical household items, we don't have to worry about that.
I remember, as you probably well remember, a couple of years ago when there was a battery manufacturer on the west side. They had a fire at their manufacturing facility, and that fire burned for close to a day, it seems like. It was an enormous response, and there was a lot of concern about reigniting.
Yep, and that's what it is. I mean, we're putting the water on just basically kind of cool that fire down. That's what you putting copious amounts of water on that fire to cool it down. A lot of times it doesn't totally put the fire out because it's, like I said, those lithium-ion battery fires can contain a lot of heat and hold a lot of heat, and it jumps from cell to cell, as I mentioned before. So that's definitely a significant impact that could happen, and that's why we're seeing longer on-scene times.
Yeah,
and just monitoring and standing by to make sure that doesn't reignite.
And we mentioned, there's a lot of items that are familiar to us that have lithium-ion. We know if you go try to take a flight now, they'll say you can't put your laptop in your luggage anymore, and for good reason. But there are so many devices that I don't even really think people think about, power banks for phones, recharging them, earbuds, power tools. And I couldn't quite get my head around this one, but also smoke detectors often have lithium-ion batteries in them. And so are you seeing an uptick in local fires that are being caused by these batteries?
I mean, with anything, any new product that comes out, the more product that's out there, the more issues you're going to have. And we're definitely seeing that. Looking at the state of Florida numbers, there's definitely been an uptick in lithium-ion battery fires. So yes, we are seeing it. Are we able to mitigate it? Yes, it's not an issue. We have the men and women out there that's fighting fires every day and making sure and educating folks, and doing what we're doing now, just trying to educate folks within, whether it's me or prevention division, doing that. So we're trying to get ahead of it.
What do we know now about the role that they may have played in the fire at the airport that engulfed the parking garage?
From my understanding, there was it was a electric vehicle that potentially caught the that garage on fire. And just like you said, it just goes back to just new technology causes different issues, and we have to adjust.
Is there anything that we know that the owner of that vehicle could have done differently that would have prevented that fire, or is it just a manufacturer defect?
Yeah, as far as that, I don't know specifics on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the fire hazard is one thing, disposal is another. And I want to ask you about that because right now, first of all, I think a lot of people don't realize they need to dispose of these in a different way. They're not safe to throw in the trash, not only because of a fire hazard, but because they cause a lot of environmental damage if they're put in the wrong kind of landfill. There's currently just one city facility for people to dump them, which is the city's hazardous household waste facility on Commonwealth Avenue. Is that sufficient? Are more facilities needed?
Yeah, I think it's definitely sufficient. We haven't seen an overload of people utilizing that site, so we definitely have.
But I mean,
capacity.
aren't a lot of people maybe not utilizing the site yet?
And that's why we're trying to get the message out. Jacksonville.gov has a lot of great information. A lot of that information is on that website. Us doing these interviews, it's trying to push that narrative out there, how to dispose of them. We've had possible fires that were caused by these disposable batteries in waste haulers. So that can be a significant issue, not only in Jacksonville, but around the state. We've been seeing that as well.
Sure, because crushing these can also...
Crushing them releases a lot of toxins, and it can catch a lot of that trash that you see around on fire as well. So,
and a landfill or a dumpster fire, nobody wants to see
that.
No,
it's a lot of flammable material in that landfill.
And I didn't know this, but in addition to the Commonwealth facility in Jacksonville, retail stores also offer disposal. So if you go to your Lowe's or Home Depot,
Lowe's,
Staples,
and items, places like that, you can definitely drop those off. They have bins. A lot of times they sit right in front of the store, and it's just a drop-off location. No communication needs to be had most of the time, and just drop it off, and you keep the citizens safe, keep your household safe, and keep our environment safe as well.
And just briefly, I mean, if someone does start to see a fire, or if they see something with their batteries that is unusual, what ought they do? Yeah,
something like that. I mean, a lot of things that you need to look for with those batteries. Cell phones, for example, just to kind of give you a tip on that one. I know I'm guilty of it. You plug that phone in and you let it plug in, and you're sitting there and you fall asleep with it plugged in all night long at 100% capacity. You wake up the next morning, that phone could be hot. It could be having some issues down the road where the batteries could be warping, things like that. You want to start looking at that type of stuff just to make sure that it's still working properly. If you start seeing things like that, it's probably time to get rid of that battery, dispose of that battery.
If a fire starts, you ought not throw water on it.
It depends.
It depends.
It depends. Yeah, it depends. If it's something that's actually on fire, and if you can, you want to get it out of a structure, out of your house.
Get it out.
Yeah, get it out. You don't want to, if you're charging.
We're going to have to leave it there. Percy Golden, thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. We'll be back in just a minute.
Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. When people are hurt through no fault of their own, finding the who, what, when, where, why, and how that led to the accident is critical to proving the truth.
More at TerrellHoganLaw.com. Congaree & Pen, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpen.com.
Join WJCT for Guitar by Candlelight, featuring Benassé and Pavlo. One night only, Thursday, January 15th at the WJCT Soundstage. Let Benesse and Pablo take you on an intimate musical journey to exotic places with classic songs. With fiery Spanish guitar, cool Mediterranean rhythms, join Benesse and Pablo for Guitar by Candlelight, an intimate concert experience. One night only, Thursday, January 15th at the WJCT Soundstage. Go to wjct.org/events for tickets.
The Trump administration says it's prioritizing denaturalization, or stripping foreign-born Americans of their citizenship. How would that work, and what's at stake?
This is a tool that's intended to shut people up. That has less to do potentially with what they did during the naturalization process and more to do with people who are not the kinds of people that the government likes.
That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11, here on WJCT News 89.9.
President Donald Trump railed against Minnesota's Somali immigrant community last week. He called Somali American Congresswoman Ilhan Omar garbage and sent ICE officers to the region. Representative Omar joins us. Then a federal vaccine committee has voted to end a decades-long recommendation that all newborns be immunized at birth against hepatitis B. What you need to know next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. For over a quarter of a century, a North Florida conservation group has worked to protect thousands of acres from development. The work is chronicled in a new book, and here to tell us about it is Sarah Handy with the North Florida Land Trust. She's also the principal author of the new book, Keeping North Florida Wild. Sarah, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me and having us.
Yeah, congrats on the new book. So for those that don't know, remind us what the North Florida Land Trust is and what it does.
Okay, so North Florida Land Trust is a land trust, but basically we work to conserve land. So we will work with, we will either purchase land outright for conservation, we will help facilitate that between maybe a partner and a landowner, or we will hold a conservation easement on a piece of property. But it's all meant to protect the land and keep it in its natural state in perpetuity.
And so the group has been together for 25 years, and in the last couple years has really had just like some big successes in terms of large parcels that you've been able to acquire or put under some sort of conservation easement. And that's not easy work. I mean, you're working with a variety of players, with a variety of interests. Is there a single strategy that you employ to try to get those lands out of the path of development?
No, there's not a single strategy. You have to be creative, and every transaction is different. And it's a lot about relationships, and it's actually all about relationships and making sure that all the players at the table are very comfortable, but you really do have to be creative and ready to pivot, because no two transactions are alike.
The group seems to have been successful at knitting together. This isn't like a group of tree huggers, who are at war with the larger community or even developers. It really is a much more collaborative approach.
Oh, absolutely.
And it seems like, and the book also chronicles, working with local communities to sort of help them develop an individual path to conservation that gets community buy-in and doesn't create like any sense of alienation. I think of what the work you've done in Nassau County particularly, which has been successful.
It has been. And we were very excited when we started working with Nassau County, and the voters approved that referendum with 68% of the votes.
For land conservation
land conservation money. And then $30 million of general obligation bonds were allocated towards that. And CLAM stands for Conservation Lands Acquisition and Management. And we also worked with Clay County, and voters passed that at 73% in November 2024. And we just completed work with Highlands County. So this really enables it, not only kind of furthers our mission of land conservation and protecting that which makes Florida so special and unique, but it enables these counties to create their own green prints, which are land conservation programs.
Oh. Well, this book is gorgeous, and I know that people who are watching our online stream can see some of the pictures. I know that some of them were contributed, some were taken professionally, but they really chronicle just like the most irreplaceable places in Florida. And I guess it is partly a reminder of that. But you put this together and, obviously no small task. You had some help from people. Our own local columnist, Mark Woods, wrote And afterward, Clay Henderson, who's a very well-known attorney, land use attorney, or kind of environmental attorney, wrote an introduction. What is the message? Like, what are you trying to convey with this book? And what does the 25th anniversary signify for the group?
The 25th anniversary, it could be even, it's a turning point. We grew, I mean, as if you read the book, you can see like our first year we protected, or the first couple years we protected 1,000 acres. Now we're at almost 44,000 acres. It chronicles the journey of growth, but it's also, it's a tool to help people really understand what we do and why what we do impacts them and their quality of life. It might seem like a forest out in the middle of Central Florida, doesn't really impact, you who live in Ortega Forest or something, but it really does. So we're all interconnected. So this book is an opportunity to educate people about what we do and how it might impact them.
And so a lot of this land is conserved, not necessarily publicly accessible. That's not necessarily the goal of the land trust, but there is a local parcel, and there are some parcels that have been made open to the public. Bug Tussle, which is here in Northeast Florida, has a great history and is now a very, very accessible site and a really beautiful marshfront one.
Yep. And now it's called Bogey Creek Preserve.
Right.
And Bug Tussle was the family name that the Spencers gave the property. And as you can read all about in the book. And then we also have a portion of the Florida Trail that goes through our Smith Lake Preserve. And our vision looking forward is to open more of our properties so there is more public access. A number of our properties are still in active restoration right now. And once we complete that process, which sometimes can take years, we'll have more opportunities to open properties to the public. But, restoration, we do prescribed burns, we do plantings, we harvest invasives. So there's a lot of times it doesn't allow for public access.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful book. We have a link to it on our website. Sarah Handy, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And that's our program. Thanks for listening. If you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight, or you can find all of our past and current shows at firstcoastconnect.org. Our show is produced by Stacey Bennett. Our associate producer is Isabella Casapow, and our director is Brady Coram. Join us tomorrow when we preview a State Department of Health meeting on Friday that is going to look at abolishing mandatory school vaccinations. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications offers online master's programs designed to support new goals at the start of a new year. More information at onlinemasters.jou.ufl.edu.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
A panel tosses out long-standing guidance